Hello, this is Spicy Dungeoneer, and we are back with our part 4 of the top 100 common magical items in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I've gone through all of the information that I could get my hands on, looking at the magical items and comparing them. We've talked in previous videos about those items which are basically just for flavor or social, which may not impact the characters that much. We've talked about one-shot or one-use items like potions and scrolls. And now we're moving on to items that have some usability or some more impact on the game. And of course, one of these is this earhorn of hearing. It's a bit deceptive because, of course, we think immediately of somebody who is having problems hearing, but it suppresses the effect of the deafened condition. So that does not necessarily have to be a medical issue. That could be from a spell or something like that. So it might be adding an interesting use for this item. Let's continue. The Candle of the Deep. It's one of those things which you're either going to really need as you do your undersea adventure, or not at all. It doesn't give off anything different than a normal candle, but the thing is it works underwater. So very situational, but in those situations, extremely useful. Moving on to 16, which is the Breathing Bubble, which is sort of like an underwater helmet, and you can breathe for 1 hour. There's 1 hour of breathable air in there. So that's interesting, and it renews itself every day. So once again, this is something that if you're going to go under the water and do stuff, you're going to need that. But if you're going to do a whole campaign underwater, you're going to need more than just this, because it's only 1 hour. This cuddly Strixhaven mascot is a bit of a funny one. I like the fact that it sticks to you. That means you don't have to carry it around, but it only sticks to you for 1 hour. And the other thing it does is gives you advantage with the saving throws against the frightened condition. So, okay, so it's a cuddly toy that you don't feel frightened when you give it a hug. That can be quite powerful, though. Being frightened can have a big impact on your game if your character is frightened by a monster. The Hat of Verman is interesting. I mean, I guess a lot of creative players will come up with all sorts of uses for these 3 animals a day. I won't go into them just in case there's some argument about the use of animals, but you can imagine. What else you can do? Well, these things are not necessarily aggressive or friendly towards you, so you could use it. You could train these animals, I guess, especially a rat. You could maybe start to develop some kind of relationship or use other spells to further use that animal in the game. This one is interesting. They're really just the same thing, just one is for wizards and one is for warlocks. They give access to cantrips with a very similar arcana check. The difference being the wizard's going to be using their intelligence, which will be a lot higher because that's what they use for their spells, whereas the warlock uses charisma, so their arcana check won't be such a shoo-in. But saying that, there is this chance of getting extra cantrip spells, which is very useful. This Earring of Message is basically a Bluetooth headset or some sort of earbud, or something like that, like a telephone. You can send 5 charges and it regains charges daily. There's no two-way communication, which is unfortunate, but definitely a player or a party that knows how to use this well can get a lot of use out of it. The thermal cube is extremely interesting. Basically, everything around that cube for 15 foot is going to be 35 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit. So how that will impact the game, like basically it's never going to be cold. The whole party can huddle around this thing all of the time. They could probably even work out a way to sleep around it if there's only 4 or 5 of them. I think it might be a little bit overpowered for a common magical item, and the DM might have to like do some cheesy sort of overruling of it if the story calls for the players to be suffering from the cold, or the characters to be suffering from the cold. Anyway, Enduring Spellbook is a great present to the spellcaster in your party, because they go, especially wizards, because they go to all this trouble of collecting spells, but it's really just a book that they're recording it in. So if something happens to that book, they're left without any of their spells, and all of that energy has gone to waste. So this just helps them out. Another one for the spellcasters, you can actually attach this ruby to a weapon and therefore use the weapon to fight and as your spellcasting focus. That's huge. It really frees up the spellcaster to have a weapon in their hand at all times. So it's a big one for a spellcaster, not so much for anybody else in the party though. The Moontouch Sword is great. It's basically, if you have a non-magical martial character or even a rogue that has no magical ability, DMs should consider giving one to that character, because they will have something to do if the party encounters something which requires a magical weapon to hit. Magic users and clerics and other spellcasters can fall back on their magic, but the fighters have nothing like that, so they need something. There was some argument online about whether it did count as a magical weapon, but apparently there has been an official ruling that it does count as a magical weapon in terms of the damage that it hands out. The Horn of Silent Alarm is another one for smart parties. We'll be able to work out how to use this silently in ways that will benefit them, and it will be great for espionage, or if you can agree upon that signal being heard meaning something, or even it doesn't say that the horn cannot be played in different ways. So that would be interesting too, if different types of tunes could have different meanings that nobody else can hear. The Orb of Shielding is great. We're really getting into those items which give maximum bang for their buck at this tier of magical item or rarity level. And so basically it reduces the damage of one type of damage type by 1d4. So that could be a great little gift for the party. And it does require attunement, and it's not too overpowered because it is about a specific type of damage. You can see all the different types here. Similarly, the imbued wood focus gives +1 damage per attack of the type that is for each type of wood. And all of those types of damage include fire, radiant, but it's only that one type. So in the hands of a particular spellcaster, say for example fire, they'll be doing a bit of extra damage, and that will be great for them. However, it won't overpower anybody because different kinds of creatures have immunities to different kinds of damage, so you won't be always buffing the spellcaster. Unbreakable Arrow has some interesting, unforeseen things that can happen. For example, if it's totally unbreakable, you could shoot it between the spokes of a wheel and completely ruin the cart. You could use it to prop up things that are falling on you. Yeah, there's lots of... I think its original intent was just to be able to be collected after it was shot to always be reused again, but because it's unbreakable, there's some interesting things that it could be used for, and I'll leave it up to the party to come up with them. Walloping Ammunition is another great one with, I think, some unforeseen results from the rules. Basically, if something is flying, you can hit it and it'll be knocked prone. So this is a great way to get flying enemies out of the air. It may be a bit too powerful for a common weapon, in fact, but your DM will be the judge of that, I guess. The Vox Seeker is an interesting one. It's pretty powerful. It will make, if you give it to your party, they're going to feel like their fighters or paladins or rangers will not feel powerful. This thing is almost as good as them. It's got a fairly decent armor class. Its hit points are not great at all, but it's got all of these condition immunities and damage immunities and things like that that it can do. It's basically, and it's almost like an assassin. So it might be better off to be an encounter rather than some magical treasure. I would be very careful about giving one of these to the party until they at least got to high enough level where they got spells that do similar things. So that's the top 100, but I know what you're saying. Joel, Spicy Dungeoneer, what's going on? You haven't mentioned them all, and that's correct. And the last one is Clockwork Amulet. And I haven't mentioned this one because, in my opinion, it should be uncommon. It's too powerful for a common magical item. Basically, if you get +5 on your attack, that means that by taking 10, for that one roll, you'll be getting a 15, which is enough to attack all of these monsters here as well as others and hit. So it's a guaranteed hit. And so if these things are 100 GP each, why wouldn't you be carrying as many as you can lift? I think that don't get me wrong, I think they thought it would be interesting, and taking 10 is not that great. You're basically not going to be able to get a critical hit, but sometimes just hitting is enough, and I think that there's a chance for this to be a little bit overpowered in my book. So if you're going to put this in your game, you should make sure that they are not... I wouldn't put them as common, because then artificers can make them and stuff like that much more easily. I'd be very careful about it. But let me know in the comments, what do you think? I mean, these are just the common magical items. There's a whole heap more that are uncommon and rare, all the way up to legendary. If you're interested in this topic, I'll keep going. I found it very interesting. It did take me all week doing this research, but I think it was a very interesting activity to go through for myself, and I'm glad I did it. If you've liked it, please subscribe and turn on the notifications, and As always, leave a note in the comments. I'd like to have a chat about it. Maybe I missed something. Maybe I got something wrong. Let me know. Bye for now.